Thanks for tuning in to the Beyond Normal podcast, where we highlight minority business owners and founders, and we use this platform to shed light on their entrepreneur journey. Appreciate everybody joining us today on the Beyond Normal podcast. I have a very special guest with me today, Alysha M. Campbell. She is the founder of CultureShift HR. I'll give you a second, Alysha, to give the folks a little breakdown around the incredible things that you do at CultureShift HR.
Yeah, thank you so much. Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. As mentioned, I'm the founder and principal of CultureShift HR, which is a strategy and HR innovation consultancy firm. So I really partner with brands and businesses on how they're able to create a workforce that is diverse, but also creating a space that is inclusive and makes people feel like they belong, and really optimizing their talent to the fullest potential. And so I help create HR programs, diversity and inclusion programs, and really just be that HR business partner to the business to make sure that they're putting their people first in everything that they do.
I love that. And I know right now, given the current situation in 2020, I know you are very, very busy.
Yes.
So I appreciate you taking some time to spend with us. I actually, as I was setting up this, this touch base between me and you, this live Q&A, I was thinking, this is like the digital world, when it comes to like emojis and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, what is the emoji, right, for HR?
Oh,
and so
goodness.
I was scrolling through the emojis. I'm going to tell you what I came up with, and I want you to tell me if it fits. So I was scrolling through, I was like, all the crazy ones, people skiing, all that stuff like that, buildings, like those don't apply.
Yeah.
But I got to pretty much the end of the emoji list because, there's like a billion now, right? And the one that stuck out to me with what you do was a black heart. And for whatever reason, that one resonated with me. But I want to know what you think, like when you say like HR, like what emoji comes to mind for you?
Oh my gosh, that is so hard. It's funny, while you were talking, I was thinking about the emoji, and this is bad. It's going to sound bad, but I don't mean it that bad. But like the one where it's barfing or getting sick.
Yeah.
And the only reason I say that is because with HR, we do have to have a lot of the tough conversations. We really do have to deliver, not always the greatest news. And so that is, and then what sucks about it is that that's what people resonate HR with. They don't see HR really as that person that is trying to put good things into the company, really trying to have a good culture, trying to keep their leadership in check, trying to put out programs that are going to really engage and optimize the talent. So when people think of HR, they think of this like dark demon, like, oh, I'm going to get fired, something's going to be taken away. And that's not HR. That's not all of HR, I guess is what I would say. Like, of course, there's a good and a bad to every job. And the bad to my job is obviously those tough conversations. But there's really a lot of great stuff in my job that I do. And that's the thing. When you do the good stuff really, really well, you don't have to have as much of the bad conversations anymore because the programs and the culture and the leadership and the communication is so aligned that those happen less and less and less and less. So I'm hoping that we could take that, puke emoji and turn it into the one with the heart eyes because they just love HR and everything that HR stands for and what we try to do. But it's not easy. It's not easy.
I appreciate that honesty.
Yeah.
So I want to take a step back, right? I want you to tell folks a little bit about your background and what really got you into that field of HR. I know that's not a career path that, when we go to career fairs, we always hear about. So what led you to the HR path?
Yeah, it's funny. I actually went to school for accounting. So my 4-year undergrad, when you had to choose, what focus you wanted to be on in terms of like a business concentration, HR was like last on my list. I didn't want anything to do with HR because HR is seen as such as like an administrative element of the business. Like, okay, you fill out benefit paperwork and like you're doing payroll. And I'm like, I don't want to do that, but I want to make decisions. I want to be, that boss woman. And so I thought about accounting because a lot of decisions rest on data. and data and numbers, they're everything in business. So I was like, if I control the numbers, I control the information, I control the decisions. And so lo and behold, I graduate. Mind you, we were still in a recession, so I'm trying to find work. And it was a real challenge for me. So I actually went to a recruitment agency and said, hey, this is my background, just graduated. Can you help me find a job in accounting? And literally the first thing they said after we did our intake meeting was, we would love to hire you as a recruiter. You would be a great recruiter. And I had two schools of thought. The first one was, I didn't just spend X amount of thousands of dollars in debt to be a recruiter. But then another school of thought was like, you know what? Opportunities happen for a reason. You're still young in your career. Try it out. If you don't like it, leave. At least you walk away with some more experience on your resume. And so that's what I decided to do. I realized pretty much within the first month of being in the role and just the people interaction, dealing with clients, helping people get into jobs that they have been so excited for and literally transformed their careers, was just adrenaline for me. And it really let me to see that literally people are the business. I don't care what you sell. I don't care what you do. If you have someone in your business operating on your behalf, sharing your brand, working in the name of X company, that is your business. Those people are your business. And so they are the ones driving and making your business grow and elevating your business. They need to be the focal point. They need to be the focus. They need to be number one. And so as I continued to grow in my HR career, I realized where I wanted to go. And I really wanted to be with, the employee experience element. What makes employees happy? What is it that keeps them engaged? How do we keep them successful? And how do we keep them growing so they want to stay with the company? And how does the company then deliver for the employees? Because it's all about them, number one. And so as I continued to just unravel what that meant for me and how that would affect what I wanted to do, I came to a really pivotal point in my career where I was like, I love what I do on a daily basis, but I don't like the way that I'm doing it. And then that for me was the catalyst for CultureShift HR. And really just focusing and working with brands and companies that really wanted to put their employees first and really wanted to create an inclusive and diverse workforce to be successful. And so that kind of landed me to where I am today. And it's been an awesome ride, very scary and stressful at times, but it really showed me when you're passionate about something and when you're go hard at it, literally you can do anything. You really just need to believe in yourself and put that action towards the goals that you have, and you can make it happen.
I appreciate that. And, like you said, that's what led to you really taking that gamble on yourself, right? And starting a business on your own, right? And now you think about, COVID, we're in a situation where there's some uncertainty. I commend you for actually taking that, taking those steps to say that, like you said, you want to put the people first in your function of HR, but you as a business owner now, right, you have to that should be the core of what you do for your business to be successful. So it seems like there's some matching there naturally with just the way with your mindset for you to take that step and be, a business owner and a founder like you are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And even in the midst with COVID and everything, and I talk to my clients about this a lot, is that, there's a lot of tough decisions are being made right now and have been made over the past, 6-7 months. But even in those tough decisions, there's still a way to put an individual first and to put the employee first. It's how you talk with empathy. It's how you talk with understanding. Like, what leaders don't give enough credit to for their employees is that their employees know the business. They know that, there's an executive leadership team or a management team making those tough calls. And when you talk to someone at the same level and with the same understanding that you're on the same page, you'll see that the reaction that you get is something you wouldn't expect, because you're treating that person with a certain level of respect and dignity, that at the end of the day, that person's going to walk away and be like, yeah, was it, really bad that maybe I just lost my job right now? Absolutely. But they treated me with respect. They left the door open for me. I have a letter of reference. I'm not walking away with nothing. And so if employers really just took that step back and said, how can I make this really uncomfortable situation better for the person who's going through a very pivotal moment in their life and their career, the dialogue would be so much different. But a lot of times, or most of the time, employers and leaders don't look at these things like that. But that small little change can make a world of difference.
I like that. And like you said, just through these times of uncertainty, if you approach somebody in a human, that human element's got to be there. You said that
Exactly.
empathy, right? I feel like if anybody were to come up to me and say, you know what, how much is it worth for a leader to have that empathy trait?
Hmm.
That's $1 million, $1 billion trait to have, that not everybody has in these times like this. And it's, the ones who don't have it, you see it in the conversations and how they go about,
Exactly.
having that dialogue with their employees.
Yeah, 100%. I see it all the time.
Front row, right? You got a front row
Yeah,
seat.
pretty much. Yeah.
So, thinking along the lines of, through this current situation, it sounds like from an HR perspective, you've had some opportunities, that for someone like you, like this situation we're in right now is such a great learning opportunity, because all the conversations that are going on right now, and a lot of workplaces a few years ago, it was taboo to talk about, politics,
Mhm.
race, sexual orientation, but some of
Yeah.
those barriers are being opened up right in front of our eyes. So, when I think about having this opportunity, I think there's some instances where there's probably some learning, some growth pains. You kind of
Yeah.
take your lumps. What's something that you learned, going through this process of being a business owner, that you wish you would have known at the beginning of the process that would have made you,
Mm.
better off in the long run?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, yeah, number one is try not to be a jack of all trades. That was one thing that I did when I started my consultancy firm. Was I was, your go-to HR consultant, whether you need policy development, employee programs, HR on call, like I do it all. And that's not a bad thing to be if that's really what you want to do, but it's very hard to stand out in a very competitive market when you're a jack of all trades. It's
Mm-hmm.
more effective if you're able to at least specialize in one area that complements the general area of human resources in my example that you service. So for example, for me, creating my business, I realized that more and more diversity and inclusion needs to be at the core of a lot of these conversations, a lot of these decisions, a lot of these policies that I'm influencing. And that's what I was talking to my clients about 9 times out of 10. And so when I took a step back and realized what was really going on, I was like, you know what? This is the business. Yeah, I'm talking about policy, I'm talking about change management, I'm talking about hiring. But at the core of all those things, we need to be talking about inclusion. We need to be talking about how we are hiring a diverse, skill set, a diverse workforce that is going to bring this business to the next level. And leaders just have never thought about it like that before. It was always like, oh, a box I need to check off to make sure that I have a certain, ratio of individuals of a certain background or ethnicity. But when you start to put things in terms that they understand, like, no, this is literally going to drive growth by 10 to 15% in the next quarter, it blows their mind, because a lot of studies now and research has been done to show how much more successful companies are when they're more diverse and when they're more inclusive. And so it's kind of like a no-brainer now that for literally companies to be more competitive, to go to the next level, to really stand out as a brand, and as a trusted value within the business, they need to be more diverse, hands down. If you're stuck in your business, if you start to look at it from that lens, you will see so many opportunities that it's really going to change the way that you operate and work your business in your market.
That's very interesting that you bring that
Mhm.
up, because it's almost like for the current status quo, right? Which is we all typically know what the leaders of CEOs of Fortune 500 businesses look like. They don't look like us in a
Exactly.
lot of instances, and so it's kind of, I appreciate you bringing that up, because that's almost like, what's in it for me, essentially,
Hmm.
from their angle. Like you said, like the studies are coming out now that show, you're better off, you're making more money when you have a
Hmm.
diverse team. And I think that, I'm excited to see, more working. I know you're definitely going to be spewing some of those insights into the
Yeah.
world, right? Because right now in the corporate America, where I come from, there is some hesitation in certain instances to approach some of these topics, because they're just unsure about what the outcome is, and they've never
Hmm.
done it before. But like you said, if there's some evidence out there that says your business is going to be healthier, you're going to make more
Hmm.
money, you're going to retain more employees, like you said,
Absolutely.
it's a no-brainer
Mm-hmm.
And it just needs to be approached, like it needs to be presented to some of these leaders that way. And I appreciate you again and commend you for taking that step and putting that on your your to-do list for your business,
Mm-hmm.
because that's going to benefit people that look like me and you at the end of the day,
Absolutely.
which is what we want, right?
Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting because I think about if COVID didn't happen, would, everything that's happened from before George Floyd to past George Floyd, would it have had the same impact and the same residency that it has today? And I don't know the answer to that. We would hope that it would, but because we're locked indoors, we can't, gather around other people, we're in our homes day in and day out. And so the news cycle and just the communications that we're getting from all these different resources literally are bombarding us. And so because we don't have an escape to get away from it, I can't go on a vacation in Mexico right now, even if I wanted to. I can't, hang out with my friends. I can't go to the movies. I can't go out to a restaurant to eat. Literally, I am, within basically the 16 walls of my place from morning till night. So because that's the constant communications and information we keep hearing, that's what we're going to talk about. And that's what we're going to think about. And then that thinking turns into goals, and that goals turns into action. And so because, we really at this point in time can't do much else. So I think COVID really made an environment that was so optimal for this conversation to happen, because you can't get away from it. It's here, it's in your face. People are talking about it. It's on the news cycles, it's on social media. We have massive, social media influencers and leaders and celebrities talking about this, putting it in your face. You can't get away from it. And so it's really amazing to see that when people come together with one common purpose, one common goal, literally it is unstoppable. And so I sit back and I look at what's taken place and what's unfolding, and we're literally changing the course of history right now when you think about everything going on and the conversations that are happening. And it's as sad as COVID is, it's literally, I think, catapulted conversations, changes in the workplace, the way that we treat employees and treat one another, at least 10 years ahead of its time.
It's accelerated a lot of the conversations we were probably slowly having and slowly starting to open that door, versus now the conversations we're having, like you said, whether it be COVID, social injustice, anything in the political space, the door is wide open. The door has just been pushed open for whatever reason, and now we all gotta, we gotta have conversations. We gotta all deal with the consequences of that.
100%.
And so I think that's that's a perfect segue there. You kind of mentioned, all the things going on in 2020, right? COVID is the first pandemic. That's pandemic number one. Then you got the conversations of social injustice. That's pandemic number two. Now the political kind of the campaign election time is coming upon us. I don't think that's a pandemic, right? But it's something where we just have to make sure everybody has parity in terms of having access to the voting and understanding, what's at stake. So for you personally, I want to take it a step back outside of your business a little bit. You personally, all three of those things, and there's probably a couple other things that are big, in the news for us all. How are these things impacting you personally when you talk about these conversations around social injustice and now with the upcoming elections?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. It's made me more passionate and more aware than I've ever been, just as a woman of color, and just even that more so as a female. Before I felt that I was pretty bold in terms of conversations I wanted to have and the stances that I wanted to take. And I feel like that's just been amplified. And I think now, especially being in the HR field, I have an obligation to talk about this. I have like a duty to talk about this. If I'm not driving the right conversations in my social circles. I'm not driving the right conversations in my business and with my clients. And so I'm always now, and I'm thinking of ways of how can other HR leaders or other HR professionals get more comfortable talking about diversity, get more comfortable talking about anti-racism acts, get more comfortable talking about bias in the workplace, because it's not a comfortable topic, especially if you are someone who is not a person of color, someone who hasn't experienced, the effects of white privilege and what that looks like for someone on the other side of the coin. You're really outside of your element. And so I really want to not just only empower others who may not be in the HR space and that atmosphere, but really my colleagues and my peers that I work with side by side every day, and help upskill them and educate them on what that looks like, because I have an obligation too. It's no point of me having all this knowledge and not share it out, to other people who can then continue to carry the torch forward. Because what I've noticed in my career is that every voice is important. Someone may resonate with me and my message, but someone else can be saying literally the exact same thing, but that person just resonates with them more because of the story of their background or because of a specific event that's taken place. So the more that we continue this conversation, the more that we will reach more people, and the more that these conversations will be less and less uncomfortable. And we can then really get down to the deeper effects and the deeper issues at hand, because this stems so deep and it goes so far down, to literally every infrastructure that we know and hold true to today's day and age. And so, bringing it back to the voting sphere, being an expat and not from the States, and having that, arm's length approach to it, I'm really able to see things from an element of like, okay, if I was here, how would this impact me? What would this look like for me? What would be the issues that would be important to me? And how can I align that to who I vote for, or who I want to see in office? And so it's definitely interesting where you, especially for myself, who's so passionate, obviously, about the anti-justice that is happening, and I can't do much about it, from a voting perspective. But what are the things that I can action? What are the things that I can influence? What can I do? And so it just makes me want to rally, and just makes me want to be that influence 10 times more, because that still has a lot of power in and of itself too.
That's very interesting. And you mentioned you not being from the States. Could you let the listeners know where you're from?
Yeah. So I'm from Toronto, Canada. Shout out to everybody from Six. Born and raised, lived there my whole life. I moved to New York in January 2020, right before COVID. So,
Perfect
it's
timing, right?
perfect timing, as with everything. So it's been, I mean, I love the city. It's always been, a goal of mine to relocate and have a different experience, and I'm getting it. So, cross that off my goals list, because it's been achieved. But the network here and the space within the city, it's such a great ground for conversations like this. And so I really optimally, it's worked out really well.
Got it. And so, you have a unique experience. Like you say, you're not from the States, you're from the Six, which is, I feel like it's a part of the States now, but maybe not so much.
Yeah.
You still have that lens of, you can kind of look on the outside and look into what we're doing as well. But obviously, since you're living here now, you're kind of, you're embedded in some of those conversations with your business. And just because you're in one of the biggest cities, and like you said, it's one of the cities where you're going to have so much dialogue when something like this pops up. Going back to kind of your lens, I guess, as a foreigner, right? You're a foreigner.
I am.
How are some of those, I guess I got two questions. Do you feel like the conversations that we're having here in the States, does that apply internationally and just in your home country as well, all the way? And then, on the tail end of that, I'd like to know, what's some of your family, what are some of the people that are within your network back home in the Six, what are they saying about the conversations we're seeing here in America? Mainly because it feels like here in America, ours is it just feels differently than other places. And I think it's because ours is just broadcast to the world. So I'll throw those two questions out there to you. I know they're very, very broad, but.
Yeah. No, no, definitely, with the stark differences of the political landscape in Canada versus the States, the conversations are happening on both sides of the border, because as for people who know or have ever traveled to Toronto or other parts of Canada, we're very polite, we're very nice. And there's this messaging that, we are there is still elements of, racism within Canada and within our frameworks. If you even just go back to our Indigenous ancestors and what they went through with residential schools and, basically losing their heritage and losing everything that they've ever known to have to rebuild and refine the historical roots. It's very, very sad. And so whether it's Indigenous, whether it's, Afro-Canadians, or whether it's, other people who have migrated and have roots in Canada, racism is real. Whether you want to be polite about it, whether you want to, be more vocal or protest about it, it's everywhere. And so where I think the differences kind of lie is that because the way that we have activism in Canada is different than in the US. It could appear to be that, oh, okay, well, maybe it's not as bad there. And maybe it isn't, but I would say it isn't from the element that it's not necessarily in your face, but when you're very aware of what the signs of microaggressions are and everything that goes into that, you see it plain as day. So it happens on both sides. And the conversation is different from the element that, yes, we continue to talk about Black Lives Matter and we continue to see the protests, and the protests happen in Toronto, and we have our allies and we're continuing to beat that drum. And then there's also on the same side, as I was mentioning, our Indigenous ancestors who have had severely traumatic events happen to them over centuries. And so it's a very interesting story as you see unfold how, people have migrated to Canada with the Underground Railroad and us being that ally back in, during the civil rights movement and everything that took place. And then we look at how we treated our Indigenous ancestors and that cohort. So it's so fascinating, the differences, but yet also the similarities between the two. And I mean, the conversations, they're alive on both sides, whether you're Canadian or from the States, they're alive, they're real, they're happening. And we're looking to now, how do we take those conversations and turn those into actions? How can we, again, influence? How can we make impact? And how can we slowly start, not even really slowly, how can we actually move the dial and get some real change happening within our cities?
I appreciate that. And, you breaking down, some of that background, some of that history on the Canadian side of things, that lets me know. And I think a lot of people feel like this throughout this whole year, we've had to start to do research and not necessarily just go off of what we see people put in front of us. And like you said, it sounds like you're going down that path as well, where you're doing your research and
Absolutely.
It's kind of, you're becoming like, you're knowing yourself more, you're knowing your background, you're knowing your culture. And I think there's some opportunity for us to do that here in the States. And I think worldwide right now, people are just realizing, know where you come from, know where your background is. That'll highlight some of the differences. But like you said, we need to focus more on those similarities, because there's going to be a similar struggle for people that look like me and you in different places around the world, which I think that's something that we want to fix and see how we can correct moving forward.
Absolutely.
We're obviously on the tail end of 2020. And, we've had some great conversations throughout the year, some tough. I know, like you said, in the HR space, you guys are leading some of that, those tough conversations that people have never had before. What are you looking forward to as we wrap up 2020 and then we transition into 2021?
Yeah. Oh, goodness. Great question. I would say I want to see a continuance of the same fire, the same passion that we've seen over the past few months with, the Black Lives Matter movement and people being very vocal and raw about what is going on right now, because no matter what other programming comes on, they're going to try to silence the realness in the different cities and really around the world. But we have to continue to bring it to the spotlight. We have to continue to be that advocate, to bring it to the forefront and continue these conversations. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm really looking forward to our organizations really taking diversity and inclusion seriously. I forget which bank it was that came out the other week saying that there's not a pipeline of, Black talent in tech. And I was shocked. It's like, I can name 10 organizations off the top of my head that have pipelines of Black talent in various industries, whether it's tech, whether it's banking, whether it's healthcare. And so to be so blinded by that is just, with everything going on, is still just, it really hits me. it really hits me hard. So I just show that I have to push harder. I have to fight harder. And I need to continue to work with companies, work with brands that want to be that beacon to show what is possible and how they could really put their people first. And more importantly, create inclusive environments of belonging for their culture to be successful.
Definitely. And, recently, like you said, that's the kind of like one of the negative sides that you hear about some of these businesses where they say, hey, we don't have the resources, we don't have the pipeline that you guys are saying we should have from, a Black and brown talent perspective. But then on the flip side of that, you see some of these other organizations really highlighting it. And it goes back to your point before, like once the data comes out, data doesn't lie. It may tell the story, it may tell the story you want when you want to tell it, but ultimately, data will shine light. And we know in this world that we're in right now, no matter your social media platform, shout out to Facebook Live because we're on Facebook Live, but no matter your platform, there's data out there to tell the story that you need to be told. And so I'm excited to see. I'm a data guy. I'm a data nerd.
Good.
I'm excited to see some of these stories that are told from a factual basis and not necessarily, just some ad that we see come across our feed there. So I appreciate you. Look, you shared a lot. I feel like this was a great HR 101 for people like me. Like you said, we've had this notion in the past around HR. Oh no, why is HR putting a meeting on my calendar?
Exactly. Yep.
And there's some opportunity, right? For you, like you said, we want to change it from the barf emoji to that black heart emoji. And that takes that dialogue that, ultimately you're leading with CultureShift HR. If people want to reach out to you, companies or just, people like myself want to reach out and find more about the services that you offer and your brand, how can they reach out?
Yeah, great question. So I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. It's Alysha M. Campbell. So find me on all those platforms, and then my website, cultureshifthr.com, or even my personal site, alyshacampbell.com. And so everyone can reach me there, and please send me a note, send me a message. Love to connect, love to talk.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. Again, I appreciate Alysha coming on and having this conversation with me. This kind of dialogue is what we need more of. And I know you guys can reach out to her business, find out how she can help you guys put your employees first. Like she said, that's going to maximize your revenue. It's going to, all the things that come across the board, right, in terms of positivity for your business. She's there to help you guys with that. Thanks to our listeners for tuning in to the Beyond Normal podcast. Everybody have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to the Beyond Normal podcast. We can be streamed across all major streaming platforms in addition to YouTube. Come back again.